Let's go.
Look at me like that.
Okay, Mr. Copeland, isn't it true that you're supposed to be testifying under an immunity agreement?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't have a clue about none of this stuff. I told y'all from the start, y'all to put me in here. Like, I don't comprehend. I done told y'all that time after time. I don't know what the immunity agreement is. I don't have a clue. Like, I'm up under so much pressure. Like, man, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer y'all question because I don't know what type. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to be as truthful as possible. And y'all keep going back into the past. I told y'all when I was talking to y'all in the back, man, I have lied. And y'all don't put me up on here telling me that I gotta be truthful when I'm telling y'all. Man, I don't know. Man, I'm afraid for my life. Every time y'all call me here, I think y'all finna take my life, take my freedom. And at this point, I can't call on nobody for help. I don't know what's going on.
Were you told before you testified that anything you testified to in the courtroom could not be used against you?
Can you say that again?
Before you took the stand, were you told that anything that you testified to in court could not be used against you?
What you mean?
Before you took the stand, were you told by myself, Ms. Love, anyone sitting at this table, that anything you testified to could not be used against you?
Anything I testified to can't be used against me?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard, yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, last week, didn't you ask the judge? You turned around and you asked her, nothing I said could be used against me, right? And you asked the judge?
Okay.
Okay. And is it true that under this immunity agreement, you were told that you could be charged with perjury?
You say I could be charged with who?
Perjury.
I don't even know what perjury is.
Okay. Were you told also in this immunity agreement that you could be charged if you committed false swearing?
I was told, I asked specifically so I can understand. I asked you, I said, what happened when y'all locked me up? Y'all told me two things I go to jail for. If I plead the fifth, and if I say that I had committed a crime that I didn't do.
Okay.
So I don't know what perjury mean. I don't know. I mean, I'm afraid for my life. And I told y'all that. I told it to my lawyer. I tell it to the judge. I tell it to everybody. Y'all got me up here. I don't know what's going on. And like I said, for the crimes that y'all charged me with, I went to jail. I did all my time for it. Y'all still bring me in here. I feel like I'm on trial at this point. I'm going to jail because I don't know. Y'all got me up here asking me questions. I don't know how to answer these questions. Y'all want me to be a witness to something I don't know nothing about.
Isn't it true that even with the immunity agreement, you did not want to testify?
Can you explain that?
Sure. Even when you were given immunity, you did not want to testify.
I still don't want to testify.
And isn't it true that you feel that you were pressured by the state to testify?
I feel like I was pressured by both sides, the state and the defense.
Okay. And is it true that you told me in front of these jurors a couple of weeks ago you felt pressured to testify?
And I still, right now, I feel pressured to testify because it's not like I'm up here it's not, I can't sit here and tell y'all, nothing. I don't know what y'all want me, I don't know what y'all looking for. I didn't see nobody kill nobody. I didn't see nobody rob nobody. I didn't see none of these boys do anything. I did some stupid things. I got caught for the stupid things that I was doing. And I just went from there. Like, I didn't. And then y'all got me up here, and I done told y'all before y'all put me up here, y'all can't talk to me on like a Tuesday or something, and you can't talk to me in the streets. And I told you, like, I lied. And I told you that, and then y'all still brought me in here.
Isn't it true that you did not want to testify because you don't want to deal with the reality of being labeled a snitch?
Miss Hilton, I was being labeled a snitch way before I had to come to trial when y'all linked that video out to the social media. So the world look at me as a snitch no matter what goes on to this day. But me coming here, like, I have put my faith in God's hands, and I come here and I let it be known. I guess got no choice but to be letting know to y'all now that I have told y'all time after time that I done lied.
And a snitch is someone who actually tells the truth, correct?
Listen, Miss Hilton, like, I mean, like, I feel like I got the world on my back now. You ask me these questions, like, I don't know, man. Like, y'all draining me. I mean, like, for real. It's a different if I sat here and seen somebody commit a crime, and then I saw them with my own eyes do this, and then I get in here and say, I didn't see them do that. Y'all want me to sit here and say, oh, the stories that I have put on other people's, and I didn't. Like, I would not do that. Like, and Lord knows I want to be with my family and my kids, but if y'all gonna put me back in jail because I won't sit right here and tell y'all what y'all believe to be whatever y'all want me to say. Like, I mean, I don't want to go to jail, but man, at this point, I don't. Man, y'all got me, man. I don't know, man. I can't sleep at night. Like, I tell you, y'all hold me in jail. Don't feed me. Don't give me water. Like, I just don't know. Like, every time I walk in this door, I pray and hope walk back out this door. I just want to be left alone. I paid for my punishment, and I done told y'all for y'all put me right here in this seat, time after time. I told Judge Glanville in his office. I done told everybody. I can tell. And I'm telling you to your face, I know you don't have anything to do with you. You doing your job, but I've been nice to you, and I've been telling you that you can't put me up here. And I told you, and I made it up. Okay. It's a difference if I seen one of these guys actually do something, and you ask me, did they do it? If you ask me, did they do something that I actually saw them do it, and I would tell you, yeah, I saw him do that. Yeah, I was with him when he did that. But this is not the case.
And you just told police what Demikian told you, correct?
I told the police anything to get them out of me. I was going through a phase. People were shooting at me while I had my kid. And my only priority was, by any means necessary, to protect them with my whole fucking life. Just, I give a minute because they drive me crazy.
Yeah, take a minute, take a breath.
Keep telling y'all.
Stay here. Come here. Stay on the stand. Take some breaths. Calm down.
And once he finishes his breath, Your Honor, the state, we conclude our questioning, Your Honor.
All right. It was Woody Copeland, Kenneth Copeland, ladies and gentlemen. And that was one of the more spirited interviews that they had, but they had many, many, many of those with Kenneth Copeland. And we started to ask the question in the chat, hey, you know, what's the mental strain that witnesses and jurors and defendants are under when they're in this type of situation where they're being asked the same question over and over and over again? And they literally feel like, you know, I walked into here a free man. I could be carted out of here a criminal. I could be carted out of here in cuffs and whatnot like that. So we had that conversation. Shout out to Transplanted Texan, sent me tons of good articles on the mental workings of the stress and strain that jurors go under. And I thought they were so good. I said, I don't think it would be right for me to try to tackle it, because y'all know I'm a pre-K law student. I already don't know anything. So I'm not going to be a pre-K psychologist or mental health expert. So what I did today is I got us a guest. So ladies and gentlemen, real quick, I want to bring on my guest, Dr. Jada Jackson. I didn't do this correctly. There we go. Dr. Jada Jackson. How are you doing, friend?
I am doing great, my friend. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So before we dive in, because you saw the video, and that was your first time seeing that, wasn't it?
That was.
Oh my gosh. I can. Okay. So I hopefully you got some notes, because I got some questions. All right. So tell us who Dr. Jada is. And by the way, greet Dr. Jada. This is the best live chat on the planet. So you might have seen other live chats on the planet, but this is the best live chat because they're about to flood this chat with Dr. Jada in the chat as you're introducing yourself. So please, real quick, tell us who you are.
Hello, everyone. Hello, family. I am Dr. Jada Jackson, and I am a licensed mental health counselor and licensed professional counselor supervisor here in the beautiful Dallas, Texas. And so one of the things I love doing is working with people as it relates to depression and anxiety and mostly mood disorders and personality disorders. I have a team of about 11 therapists who work with me. We also do lots of coaching. We coach nationwide, really globally. We have some coaching clients overseas, and we just believe in being compassionate, empathetic, and ensuring that people have what they need to get through some of the roughest times of their lives. And it looks like Woody needs my assistance. Looks like he could use a therapist right now.
You know what? That actually, I wasn't intending it to be like that, but you're actually right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, he's a street dude. He's a
Mm-hmm.
street guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've met him a couple times at the courthouse. He's a man of the streets,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
he's surviving doing what he's doing. But he was thrown into the mall, and again, I don't know if you know much about the story, but several almost a decade ago, he had there was an incident that he was a witness to, or at least a informant to. That was a decade ago.
Okay.
Now they're starting to bring the thing to trial, and the dude is like, "Look, yeah, I snitched back then, but I was lying back then, and he's trying to do the right thing now, trying to live a life that's a little bit better than where he was before."
Yeah.
And they just keep dragging him back, like he's leaving the street, and they just dragging him back into that life. So it was
Yeah.
sad to see in 4K. And like I said, there's at least 5 more of these incidences where he just literally becomes unhinged. Now, I had some questions we were going to ask, but feel free. Did you see something in there maybe you would like to address?
Yeah. I want to address it just from the psychological perspective, because whenever we are under stress, whether it's Woody or it's you, Jason, or myself, or anyone, those of you who are in the chat, when we are under stress psychologically and emotionally, the first thing that is going to happen is we're going to want to crack or to break. And one of the things that I think is important, and I say this to my clients all the time. I didn't say this in my introduction, but I work with a lot of high profile clients. I work with athletes, NBA, WWE, Major League Baseball Association, and most of the things that we have in common when we're um, living at a high level is this idea that we have a peak performance that we have to level up to in order for us to do what we do best. Well, when a person is under stress or is triggered, then the first thing that happens, and I'm sure all of you know this, but I'm still going to say it. I'm going to say it anyway. We activate the stress response. And what happens with the stress response? I tell my clients, I show them like this. So if this is the brain and you open up the brain, in the center of the brain here, there's a little small area that's called the amygdala. And once the siren goes off or the alarm goes off, immediately norepinephrine is released into the adrenal glands. And once that takes place, then cortisol is released and adrenaline is released. And then our heart starts to pound, and then our thoughts begin to race, and we may get sweaty hands, or we may begin to profusely begin to perspire. But what's happening is our brain is telling us that we are no longer safe, that we are under attack. And whether that is a physical or environmental attack, or if it's an emotional or psychological attack, it's still a perceived attack. And therefore, we launch into fight, flight, or freeze. And that's what we saw with Woody. He was launching into fight, flight, and he wanted to jump up and get away from the moment. And so that's a normal stress response. But Jason, the big question is, what happens when a person's constantly smacked and bombarded and smacked and bombarded and smacked and it's just this vicious cycle. What happens then? Well, we get into chronic stressors or chronic stress. And I believe that that's what Woody's going through.
Wow. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So we're in this stress situation, and this could apply because we initially started out talking about the jury, because we felt like the jury was going to be under stress or some kind of duress, because they're only making $25 a day, and they got house notes and all this kind of stuff like that, and you're in here for 9 hours a day, and it's cold in the courtroom. Oh my goodness, it's cold.
Is it
It's
cold?
comfy cold. It's comfy cold. I can only be there till lunchtime, because I said I'm gonna I'm gonna get held in contempt. I'm gonna be laid back snoring. I said, they're gonna get me. And so we started out talking about the jury, really.
Yeah.
And but then, like, what about looking at this gentleman right here? And again, there have been several instances that Woody has had, but there's also been several other instances of other witnesses who, again, were street dudes. Now, 10 years later, they got wife and kids. They
Yeah.
were street dudes. Now they're out here trying to work a real job,
Mhm.
and they're in the same kind of situation. So this fight or flight situation. But does it have to be? Does it have to be like high grade stress all the time, or can it just be like a drumbeat of just instead of being on 10,
Mhm.
like you're on 6 all the time instead of
Yeah.
instead of being on 3? Like talk about that.
Yeah, there is that. And two, when it's that 5 or 6 area, and it's kind of, I like to call it a silent hum. It's just the constant stream of stress.
Mhm.
And what's happening is still cortisol is being released into the body, adrenaline is being released into the body because the brain, and I like to look at it like this. um, if you look at research, oftentimes researchers will say the brain is not really that smart. And the reason why that is because the brain cannot differentiate between what is reality and what is
Okay.
fantasy.
Okay. Gotcha.
We essentially tell our brain what's real. That's how we can have perceived fears. They're not really fears. It's just the perception of fear. However, the body and the brain still responds to the perception that we have that we are in danger. And so whenever, and I think that you hit the nail on the head, Jason, when you said, when we're talking about the jurors, it's not just sitting in the courtroom, being exposed to all sorts of stress related issues as it relates to the trial. But what about all the stress related issues that they're having to deal with at home, or not being able to deal with some real life threatening issues? If they're making $25 a day, how are they providing for their families? How are they stabilizing their home environment? How are they going to be there to help their kids go to soccer practice or basketball practice? How are they able to do what really needs to be done on a day-to-day basis? They're not. And so there's the psychological implications of not being able to support their family. So that in and of itself is stress as well. And so now we have compounded stress, and that's where the chronic stress comes in. And you're right, it may not be on a 10, but chronic stress can still be on like a 6. And it's just high enough to keep your body flooded with negative hormones, which would be that cortisol and which would be that adrenaline, and it doesn't go away. You can't like go back and go, I'm just kidding. I want all my hormones to go back to where they came from. It's like it doesn't work that way. Once they're released, then the next level we go to, and that's where people in my field, teaching others how to manage their stress, how to get back to baseline, how to develop their emotional management toolbox so that they can deal with everyday stressors.
So are there keys without bankrupting your practice that one could say, hey, you know what, I yelled at the dog this morning, or I was stressed because the garbage wasn't taken out, or came outside and there was a flat tire, so I was stressed and I already started the day off,
Mhm.
but I realized it really isn't that bad, but I'm already torqued off. I know my
Flooded.
body's out
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
flooded. Is there
Yeah.
something they can do, or do they need to just, like, what can they do?
Yeah, there are a number. I have what's called my EMT, or emotional management toolbox, to the rescue. Um, in working with my clients, one of the things that they have to be able to do, step one, is that you have to be able to identify the trigger. Is the trigger an external trigger? Is that the variable, or is the trigger a thought? Is it an emotion that you continue to have? Was it an argument with a coworker? Once you identify the trigger and then you identify your response to the trigger, then and only then can we step into a place of getting back to baseline. I like to say, the reality is I'm a fighter, and I say that because I wrote a whole book about growing up in a domestic violent home, and um, I only knew to fight because my parents fought, my dad fought, my dad taught me to fight. So my first reaction has always been to fight and ask questions later. Then I started to realize that, oh, wait, society says you're not really supposed to do that. So you have to learn how to manage your emotions and your feelings. And so once you recognize the trigger, you identify it, you understand how you personally respond when you feel under pressure. Some people flee, some people, avoid and pull away. And that's okay. But you also have to address it. You have to pull up and address it. And then, I like box breathing. Breathing
Okay.
in for 4, holding 4, breathing out for 4, resting 4. The reason why that's important is because oxygen is released to the brain. And
Hmm.
when oxygen is released into the brain signals to the rest of the body to calm down and to relax. So we have quite a few different ways to address stress.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let me real quick. And you said you're okay with answering some questions if
Sure,
they
sure.
ask. Okay, so I'm gonna say I'll put the question queue in here. If you do have questions, good people, while me and Dr. Jada are talking, you can put them in the chat. And I don't see it on my board. You can put it in the chat. Just write the word question, kind of like Valor Woman did here. You can put the letter Q or the word question. And she says, Dr. Jada, what can you do to stop it when it continues? Your mind racing to where you can't focus, hear, speak, write, or rising from sleep immediately, ready to run.
Rising from sleep immediately ready to run, that sticks out to me, first of all. I would say that I would get an evaluation to see if there's a possibility there's a chemical imbalance in the brain, because to wake up and all of a sudden, you're ready to run, something else is going on. But I
Okay.
will say this, once you are at that peak level, if you can get to a place, I always tell my clients again, if you can get to a place of learning how to use guided imagery or some form of visualization that can help you get back to baseline. One of the things that I like to do is to visualize myself. I love water. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and I love water. Anything, it can be a lake, it can be a pond, the ocean, whatever it is, I love water. So for me, that is a calming agent. Whatever you can find in here, meaning in your mind, that you can train your brain that when you think about it from a meditative state, that it will allow you to get back to baseline, do it. So if you really can't stop it, no matter what you do, no matter what coping skills you've tried, I would definitely say, um, look to see if a supplement or medication might help you uh, balance out. I think that that may be helpful for you. I hope that answered your question.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, I do want to jump back to the trial. And the reason being is recently, and I forgot, this was actually what kind of got this whole conversation started. One of the attorneys, great attorney, shout out to Doug Weinstein, he filed a motion for a motion to limit state's case due to prosecutorial unpreparedness and inefficiency, undue delay, waste of time, and or needless presentations of cumulative evidence. Basically, y'all need to move this along. They just had tons. I think one time they had like 3 Infinity experts to describe that this was an Infinity car in the video. You didn't need 3 of them to do that. But one of the things that stood out to me and it kind of got the whole conversation started, and I did drop this link in the chat, and I think I sent it to you as well, Dr. Jada,
Yep, I saw
is
it.
one of the things he said right here. Jurors become overwhelmed by the volume of evidence and numb by its repetitiveness. Their attention flags, their minds wander, and the wittiness. There were more than 100 in a trial of the two defendants get mixed up in the jurors' minds, or forgotten, or profusion of exhibits makes the documentary record unintelligible. The impressions created by the closing arguments are likely to wipe out everything that went before. Jury comprehension has been found to diminish after a mere 20 days of trial. And like I told you, this trial is actually on day 124 is today.
Mm.
So let's just say that it's diminished 5 times as much as what they said here, almost 6 times as much. So in a situation like this, what would you say if you're dealing with a client or an athlete or a podcaster? If you want to run some tests, I know this guy can help you out, whatever. But what would you say to help them? And they're stuck in a situation,
Yeah.
and there's really nothing they can do. They can
Yeah.
take notes, but what would you say?
Yeah. My heart really would go out to them, first of all, because you're taking everyday people and thrusting them in the middle of, at least in this case, kind of the street life and the gang life and all of these other things that they're not normally exposed to. But secondary trauma or vicarious trauma is real. And if it's a juror and they're sitting there listening to maybe acts of someone else, they can be impacted in that way. But if they're feeling emotional for a witness or angry, from the defense or the prosecution, then again, those are still emotions that are being triggered. And so they're having some sort of response. And the only thing that I could say is to breathe through it. There's really not much these jurors can do because, again, they're on the jury, they're exposed to information that their brains probably have not been privy to before, or they're reliving something over and over and over. And I kind of think that that's what's happening to Woody again. I haven't seen the entire trial, Jason, and I know I told you that I wasn't going to talk a lot about it, but I did see some of it. And what I saw was the same questions being asked over and ad nauseum.
Yeah. Well, he was declared a hostile witness at that point, and a hostile witness, they literally can badger you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think if we probably went through it, they were asking the same question probably 9, maybe even 10 times.
Yeah.
I would be fried too.
Yeah.
And
that's what happens to the brain for the most
yeah.
part. Yeah.
So, okay, thank you so much. Okay, there have been tons of questions. So we're going to dive into some of these questions and get some answers and get you some solutions. All right, how do you breathe? And I think this is the box breathing method that she was referring to.
Let's do it really quickly. Come on, Jason, let's do it.
I'm an apt pupil. Let's do it.
I
actually do this to help me go to bed at night. So
I
already do it. So, okay.
So box breathing is very simple. I always tell my clients, again, get grounded, make sure that your feet are planted on the floor. So you're grounding yourself. And then if you can, get as relaxed as possible, your hands flat on your legs, or if you're laying in the bed, that works too. But you breathe in through your nose, 4 counts, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, release, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. And that is box breathing. And so the whole idea what you really want to do, you have to breathe through your nose because you want to get that oxygen to the brain. The brain is going to signal to the rest of the body and the muscles in the body to automatically relax. You don't even have to think about it. The brain is going to do it for you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Let
Absolutely.
me know how that works for you, Filipino girls, 1970. All
Mhm.
right. Now, she also asked about focus, and she just put the word focus. So I'm gonna embellish into a question. Do I focus on, for example, I come downstairs, the toaster's on fire, there was no coffee made. I got 9 flat tires, the garbage disposal is making weird noises.
Mhm.
Um, and everything's going crazy.
Mhm.
Do I focus on solutions to these problems, or do I focus on, like, okay, one thing at a time? Or when you
Yeah.
say focus, what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if the toaster's on fire, you put the fire out first, right? We're,
Fair. I'm gonna triage this. You're right. You're right.
yeah, we're going there first. But um, here's what research has found. When it comes to stress and anxiety, 80% of what we are stressed and anxious about probably won't happen. Now, an anxious person would say, but I'm concerned about the 20%, right?
Right.
And so either way, we can only control what we can control.
Mhm.
So if you can control putting the toaster fire out, you do that first. If you can control getting breakfast made, or can you stop along the way on your way to work? Whatever it is, control what you can control. All of us in some way, we're always juggling 3 or 4 different balls at a time. That's just what our life has become. Not to mention, we're constantly inundated with over 80,000 pieces of information on a day-to-day basis. And so the real question is, and I like to say it this way, I have learned to become unbothered. And the reason I say that is because now we're too activated. We're activated by almost everything around us. And if we can focus, and here this goes back to the word focus,
For sure.
focus on what is most important.
Okay. I love it. Thank you very much. Filipino girl 1970 again. All
Mhm.
right. Now here's a question. And I think this came up. I can't remember exactly where it was, but can it be a person? I think Miss Tina 1918. I'm sorry, 0918. If I'm wrong, please correct me in here and just put a question again. What if it's a person? What if it's a person that's doing this to you, that's causing you this? You kind of alluded to it with your childhood upbringing.
Mhm.
What do you do when it's as a person and it's not an inanimate, flat tire or a active toaster fire? It's a person that maybe they just got ill will for you. What do you do?
Yeah, that's when boundaries come into play. I honestly believe that people, they do come in our lives for a reason and a season. Not everyone who we allow into our inner circle has the privilege of being in that inner circle. If
Sure.
there is a person who's constantly triggering you, who is constantly upsetting your mental well-being, then I believe that that is a responsibility of you setting healthy boundaries. And when I say you, I really mean me too. Um, when we're talking about those boundaries, remember there are all different types of boundaries. There are emotional boundaries, psychological boundaries, financial boundaries, spiritual boundaries, intimacy boundaries. We can go on and on. The boundaries that we set are simply a limit. And that limit tells us what we will and will not accept, what we will and will not do. When it comes to the people we love the most, those are the people who violate our boundaries the most. Um, the people who are closest to us, our coworkers, our spouses, our sisters, our brothers, our aunties, our cousins, it's the people who are closest to us that cross and violate our boundaries the most. And so we have to determine, can we allow this person close enough to us in order to continue to trigger us? And believe it or not, that's what a lot of the work that I do in my office is around setting healthy boundaries, because a lot of us are people pleasers by nature.
I love it. And she did say, and she did later on, I did see that she said, what if the person is a person that triggers you? And I think you did kind of address that. So shout out to you. Thank you, Miss Tina, for that great question. All right. That was wonderful. Now, do you find that in your practice, do you find like, is it more professional athletes that are living a stressful life, or CEOs, or just, or whomever, like stay-at-home moms? Who is it that you find in your practice, without calling anybody's names out?
Sure. I wouldn't dare call their names out, but
No.
I think it's the single moms, if I had to say, or divorced parents who are attempting to transition their lives and at the same time raise children.
Okay. I can totally see that. Totally see that.
Yeah.
All right, here's a good one from Star Child. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So please speak, Dr. Jada, on how long-term inmates can learn all of these wonderful things that you're referring to. What do they do? Because that's got to be
That's a tough population. Well, interestingly enough, I have two of my therapists or my coaches who work with inmates, and they love prison ministry. And usually that's all about giving hope, especially those who, like you said, have long-term sentences, or we do have a couple of people who have gone in and spoken to those who have lifetime sentences, and really it's about hope. And for me, that's where Christ comes in. When someone who does not have hope, the only hope that can be given is Christ Jesus. And so if you ask me, how, what can we give them, that is the only redemption that one may have. But additionally, it's getting to a place of learning your own strengths, and those strengths are, how do you control your mind when your mind is racing out of control? How do you control your emotions where your emotions don't run you, but they're just a platform for information for you to be aware of what's going on with you? So it takes time. And, hopefully there are those who are, doing that work that are helping those inmates.
No, that's good. Thank you very much. I never thought about that.
Mhm.
Excellent question, Star Child. Now, I am Lady 57. She's going to bring that noise as well. Those of us who are on oxygen practice pursed lip breathing.
Mhm.
Smell the rose, breathe in, blow out the candle, breathe out.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Yeah, I
familiar
like
with
that.
this. Okay.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, I am Lady 57. That's good stuff.
Now she comes back. Let me also respect just an average man. He said we call it combat breathing.
For box
Box
breathing.
breathing. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
I don't remember how I learned it. What was
Yeah.
the term I was called when I learned it? But yes.
Mhm.
All right. Here it comes. I am Lady 57. You ready?
Mhm.
Watching this trial has me feeling a lot of anger towards the DA. I have to admit, I think it's fair to say the DA is not on anybody's Christmas list. Let me just tell you this, right? Okay. They do some things that really do not come across as genuine and seeking. It does seem like victory at any cost, even at the expense of these men. But anyway, DA and her team, because of the corruption that
Yeah.
has come to light and their treatment of Woody, what do I do? This is a great question for everybody.
It is. It is. And unfortunately, I hate to even say this. I hate to say stop watching because it's too good not to watch. However, I would say that there's something, that emotion is informing you about yourself. And so usually anger is a secondary emotion. Beneath the anger, there are all sorts of softer, less aggressive emotions beneath the anger. So I am Lady 57. I wonder, what are you feeling beneath the surface? Are you feeling um, any, of course, fear? I mean, of course, anger, but is there, do you feel there's an injustice? Do you feel there's, um, what do you feel? Put it in the chat. I want to know what might be a lesser aggressive
Well,
emotion
I,
beneath
I
the
will say this for
surface.
me.
Yes. What
I'll
about
say
you?
for me,
Hmm.
because I've actually met the DAs that we're referring to.
Okay.
And a lot of the things that we perceive on camera are really probably real true. Sometimes you're like, oh, I see this, but they're not really. When I met them, I think, Dr. Jada is one way, but when I met her, she was a different way. Like, I had it all wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's some things. But the thing I realize is, for me, I realize that this is a human, just like Woody, just like Young Thug and everybody else in here. They're humans,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're flawed.
Right.
And I could say what I want to say about them, but look, I wouldn't want the camera on me for 9 hours either, showing my flaws. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to be gracious to that fact that, you know what, she's a human, and I don't think she's doing everything right. I do think there's a lot of things that she's doing wrong. But I
Hmm.
realize that I'm sure if I was on camera for, again, 8 hours, 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, y'all would find a lot of things wrong with Jason as well. So
Yeah.
that being the case, I'm trying to be gracious to her and realize that at the end of the day, this is a human that Christ made. And my response to her only demonstrates, for Jason at least, only demonstrates how much Christ has actually impacted me rather than saying anything about her. So, or the team. And a lot of them are just doing their job. So they're
Yeah.
just, I hate to say it, but the way it was told to me, this case came and dropped on their lap, on their desk, and said, okay, y'all go ahead and try it. So it wasn't like they sought to do it or they were out there trying to do it. So they are trying to do the best with literally a gigantic steaming pile that was dropped on their desk. So that's how I treat them.
I like it.
And also try to find things that are about them that are actually and admirable. Like I said, like the DA, I think she has a nice smile. I think she has a nice smile. I have no problem with that. And I think the other lady, I think she seems like a very nice lady. Again, I just don't think in this regard I would treat her that way, but that's just how I handle it. Um, Let me see real quick. I'm trying to. I know there's some more good ones in here for you.
Hmm.
Did I close them out? Wait, we got to all of them? No way. I just didn't click them all. That's what it is.
But I see a lot of people, Jason, are saying injustice. And it's the
Yeah,
justice that,
I don't like, for example, like again, the case is almost 12 years old. And the
hmm.
only reason that we know about it is because Young Thug had money. But I
Mm,
mean, please keep in mind, initially it was 28 defendants, 28. And now there's 7 that,
yeah.
some have pled out and some have been severed. But the only reason this case is, and they got some really good lawyers. So the only reason we know this case is because Young Thug had money. So I'm like, yo, if that ever happened to me, y'all would never know because I ain't got 2 pennies rubbed together. I'm
Yeah.
already in jail.
Yep.
I'm already there. I'm done.
And with no cameras,
No
with
camera. Nobody would care.
nobody can know it.
Nobody would be saying YS, DW, nothing. They'd be like, holla at your boy. Yeah, there's a lot of injustice. So for real, yes.
Yeah.
But what were you about to say? I'm sorry.
I think I was probably just I'm sitting here looking in the chat as well. And I think that that what I have felt in several of these trials is just maybe the corruption of it all, maybe the motive, maybe corruption's a strong word, but the motive or the agenda behind it all. And the length of this trial definitely is, it seems like there's a lot of politicking going on. But again, I don't know enough about it. But what comes up for me emotionally, since we're talking about emotions and the psychological implications of trials like this, how it impacts not only the jurors or the witnesses and the judge and the prosecution and the defense, but the community at large, the community they're sitting back watching our legal system, and it's so broken. And I feel honestly helpless. There's a helpless component to, like you just said, Jason, what if? What if this, was my little brother? Or what if it was, fill in the blanks? But yeah, I wonder sometimes. I do. I wonder.
No, that's a great point. Okay, so let's leave courtrooms for a moment and let's just talk about just life in general. Let's go back to the summer of love, 2020. And John says, can someone you don't really know but inherently trust, like a nurse, trigger you? I had a bad experience recently. A nurse told me that I needed to put on a mask or I wouldn't be able to get my cancer, he said, treatment.
Mhm.
So yeah, a trusted professional, and then
Yeah.
they treat you like that.
Yep. And then, but that, John, that goes to something else, which it's more of a power dynamic. Someone, like if you're in a hospital, the people who have the power to make decisions would be the doctors, the nurses, the administration, fill in the blanks. And if somebody has the power to make a decision that would impact you, of course you can be triggered.
Absolutely. Okay, sorry about the Filipino girl. As you see these young men, and how do you try to help someone who runs towards chaos? Yeah, you got streets out there in Texas. We got streets here in Atlanta,
We do.
and we got the streets, man. And these young men, yeah, they in the streets, man. They doing the street stuff. So what do you do to help them in this regard? Because again, it does create a situation where you are in this constant loop of chaos, running from the police,
Yeah.
running from the local gang, running from the person you stole drugs from, running from the police, running from another gang. So what do you do
Yeah, it's
when this
really
is all you really know, like literally?
and that's what I was going to say. We're talking deep-rooted cultural, societal issues, and some, and it's unfortunate, but there are some that can't be saved, and that hurts my heart. But we have so many different um, people who have boots on the ground who go into those areas, and oftentimes they are coaches and counselors who have been there, done that, and they can make a connection way beyond like someone in my office could. But we have, in our profession, we have those who go in and do that, and it takes a special person. It takes someone who can talk the language, someone who understands the streets, and I believe that it's important. So, I mean, this kind of all ties in together, because we're talking about whether it's the streets or whether it's inmates, or, you know, just in certain areas in our cities where maybe they're not going to go and ask for a therapist, or they're not going to go and ask for coping skills. You know, who knows what coping skills are unless you've really been educated or taught about that. But yeah, it breaks my heart, and even our church has a ministry for that. So we have some community professionals who are out there doing what they can to attempt to save the world.
I love it. I love it. So Valor Woman, you and Valor Woman are going to become BFFs, I'm telling you. He says, how can we appropriately be encouraging for the inmate while dealing with the stress of taking care of the necessities of our
Mhm,
commissary and
mhm.
balancing responsibilities at home?
Okay,
So
I see where we're going. Okay, Valor Warrior. Um, Here's what I say. Now, I'm probably going to take off my psychology hat and put on my ministry hat here in a moment, because I do think when we're talking about incarceration, when we're talking about an inmate, when we're talking about someone, I believe that anyone who has had their freedoms taken from them has some form of trauma. They have been in a traumatic situation, they are experiencing trauma, and they have no hope. And so the only way of encouraging that person is showing up and being the Jesus that they need to see. And in doing that, that might be a kind word, that may be biting our tongue, that may be a lot of things. But I do believe that it is our responsibility to be the light of the world, to be the salt of the earth, and to show up as Jesus would have us to show up for those who are hurting and for those who no longer have their freedoms.
I love it. Thank you so much. That was great. All right. So Ray asked, I imagine when she said, but being a juror, I agree with what she said, but being a juror, that law may change how they feel about the defendants. Juror dumpster fire, they aren't allowed to put out. Life is still going on. And you kind of addressed that
Mhm. Yep.
just with the stress and dealing with all of those different things that they deal with.
Yeah,
Because
and
yeah,
here's to that point, I can add this one little piece, Jason, that having information constantly thrown at you can eventually desensitize you to the information, and therefore it can impede a healthy decision
I
either
got you.
way. And so um, that can be a problem as well.
Absolutely. Because I mentioned to you before, when one is declared a hostile witness,
Mhm.
I, as the prosecutor, I can drill and ask you questions a
Yeah.
100 times over. Well, the
Mhm.
problem is the jury is also being drilled and asked the questions 100 times.
Exactly.
So you don't actually think about, like, I think it's almost impossible for the jury to side with somebody in that situation, because they are now they're almost held hostage along with the person. Like, yeah, I got to sit there and he got to listen to you ask him the questions 5 times. I'm supposed to synthesize and listen to you ask him the same question five
Exactly.
times. So yeah,
Exactly.
there's a lot of problems there. I agree with your assessment. Thank you. All right, what do we have here? All right, I got another good one right here. Now this is actually Tamika. Now y'all are like, well, who's Tamika Scott? She didn't even ask a question. She just said, hey, she's actually sitting. She was sitting in the back with me the other day at the courthouse, and I saw her today when I went to go get my Rule 22. So shout out to Tamika. I just want to say hey to you. All right, let's keep this game going. Your friend again says, knowing Woody, that's Kenneth Copeland, the gentleman we watched, has tried to change his life, and all these years later, it's back in his face. I mean, you've again, I don't know how diligent he was in trying to change his life, but I do think he was making an attempt. And now all of a sudden is surprise, you're right back in, 2015, 2014 and such. Any suggestions for him if what would you tell him? Like, you see him, he's stressed out about this. What would you tell him?
Man, I tell Woody to pray,
Yeah.
because how many people go on with their life, whether he's trying to change his life or not.
Mhm.
My understanding is that whatever this, they're asking him questions that took place, what, 8 or 9, almost 10 years
10,
ago,
almost 12.
12 years ago.
Some of these instances are pretty long, but definitely 10,
Sometimes I
definitely
can't
10.
remember what I said yesterday.
I'm
So if
trying to
you
tell you.
ask me what I said and who I said it to and how I said it and what I was wearing and when I was wearing it and is this the picture? Because I did see part of it where they were saying, is this the picture
Yeah.
that you were in? He was like, well, what you mean? You know what? But I
What you
feel like
mean?
I would be the same. Like, I don't even know. Let me get my iPhone and look at the date so I can give you the right. I mean, I wouldn't know either. And so, yeah, it's hard. That I would tell Woody to pray.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree.
It's a
Now,
tough situation.
I think he got another best friend, Val War 2. I think it's Valiant Warrior. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jada and DWC, for truly helping me understand and keep clinging to Christ and hope. Thank
I
you so
love
much,
it.
friend.
I love it.
All right. What's hard? What's hard for me as a retired captain? I think they are guilty of some of, if not most, but seeing the justice system abused because they have a crappy case seems betrayal. And
Mhm.
I've said this. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not under the delusion that these guys are like choir boys.
Correct.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Some of these guys got 22 charges on them.
Yeah.
One of those is valid. Okay, at least one.
Right.
So I'm not under that. But on the same note, and I've said this multiple times, it's not because I don't like you or I mean, they got face tattoos and they got dreadlocks,
Yeah.
and they're gonna get a side eye if they came knocking on the Jackson family door tonight.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
right. But
Exactly.
that's not the reason you throw them in jail.
Right.
You
And
don't throw. Go ahead.
Jason, both of these things can be true at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Meaning, yes, maybe something did go down and okay, but at the same time, the justice system is really showing their behind right now, I think, because it's just not, there's an injustice here.
Absolutely. And like I keep saying, like y'all would not even know it if it was me, because I'd already been in jail. I'd already been 2 years in. Well, they've been fighting it for 2 years. Look, Jason already in jail. Jason already in 2 years in.
Listen, he's still sitting. He's sitting right now, y'all. He's sitting.
I'm done. I'm done. I ain't gonna look. I can't afford that lawyer. Look at this one though.
Mhm.
You kind of addressed this, but I do want to bring it up again just in case anybody new popped in and didn't hear what you said earlier. What does Angie say? Angie says, how do you deal with always being in a fight, flight, or freeze state and or dealing with PTSD? Now, let me ask a real quick question. PTSD is an actual diagnosis.
Yes.
So there's somebody with a lot of letters after their name would say, Jason, you have PTSD.
Mhm.
But is there a Temu version or a Wish.com version of PTSD where I don't have to go to so that's a double question, a compound question.
Jason, you are hilarious. Yes, there is. So that's a great question, Angie. That's a great question. So fight, flight, freeze is the stress response. All of us have a built-in stress response that protects us. It keeps us out of danger. It keeps us from supposedly making really, really dumb decisions. That fight, flight, freeze, or stress response is something we're engaging with every single day. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a diagnosis, and many people don't know this, but PTSD is in the anxiety family, and usually PTSD comes from, most people know it from being in war, being on some form of battlefield. That's part of it. But a person, if you do any research nowadays, you can have PTSD from almost anything. And also, there's something that's now called everyday trauma. And everyday trauma might show up in you having a stress reaction or a trauma response to traffic, or a trauma response to getting into an argument or a fight with your spouse or your boss or anything like that, anything that would ultimately trigger your stress response and kick it into overdrive. So that those are everyday stressors. But at the end of the day, you need a diagnosis for PTSD, Angie.
I got you. So I'm gonna just hijack her question. I'm assuming that the person that she's talking about just has everyday stress or everyday trauma.
Okay.
Because if they did have PTSD, then they would have. There's some other remedies that would be available to them. So I'm thinking they're probably here in Atlanta dealing with Atlanta traffic, and that can do a lot. That can do a number on you for sure. Trust me, I can testify
For
to it.
sure.
Okay, so are you familiar with RICO? Racketeering and influence and corrupt organization?
I am familiar with it based on the Fonnie Willis trial and this trial. That's
Gotcha.
all I know about it. It is
So
not my wheelhouse.
so you're a pre-K law student like me.
Exactly.
Okay. So RICO, because Jana asked this question. So
Mhm.
RICO is just basically I hate to say it, it's an underhanded way for them to take a lot of people and group them together, slap them with a crime, and start picking off the herd. So they find
Until they get to what they
right.
really
They
want.
wanted to get Jada. I mean, they wanted to get Dr. Jada because she is, she's got this really dope camera. So they throw a RICO around everybody possible, and then
Mhm.
they just start picking them off, and then slowly but surely they get to enough information, criminating information on Dr. Jada. So they're throwing all these other people into paroles and all these kind of crazy jail situations, but then they ultimately want to get Dr. Jada. Um, that's a real generic definition and what happens, but you see it because some of these people are being charged with stuff like, wait, any other time you would have just charged this man for this.
Mm,
Let's say he was selling drugs. You're
yeah.
charging him for selling drugs and deal with him accordingly. But no, because you put RICO on it, now you're like he's a part of this enterprise, this big organization that not only sells drugs, but throws little old ladies off bridges and kicks puppies and does all this stuff and all this crazy stuff. So they're just trying to put their arms around everything. So that's what RICO is. But this is something, and we might have to bring you back another day to talk about this one. So shout out to Mika for this one. Okay. I feel bad for the state witness that were coerced into taking these horrible plea deals to get out of Rice Street. And you're like, what's Rice Street? Everybody,
Not
come
no
on, boys and girls.
idea
Everybody say, what's Rice
what
Street?
Price Street.
It's Fulton County's jail.
Oh,
And it is, let me tell you, this is how bad Fulton County's jail is. Rice Street. It's known as Rice Street. You're more likely to die in Rice Street than
mm-mm,
on the street.
mm-mm.
If
No,
you're a criminal, let's say you're a street dude or a street gal, you're more likely to die in the jail than you are to die on the street.
because of
That-
violence.
because of violence, poor hygiene, it's terrible.
Mm,
So I should have played you the video of the guy like literally crying about the fact that he was locked in Rice Street, and not only in Rice Street, in the medical wing of Rice Street. So these are the people that are dealing with major medical problems,
uh-huh.
and just how terrible it was. And they got it to the point where basically these people would say anything, just about anything.
To get
Yeah,
out.
I went to Alaska and I killed Santa Claus. I mean, that's how crazy these people would say just about anything to
Wow.
not be locked in Rice Street. So we might need to come back and do another episode just about Rice Street.
Right.
'Cause, I mean, it's really, and I'm not even being funny. Criminals are more prone to die at Rice Street
That's
than
sad.
they
No
are
wonder
on the
Mika said
street
she feels that.
outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not a good look. That's not a good look
That's
for us
sad.
at all. I hope that answered your question, Jana, about what is a RICO. Thank you, Erickson. Erickson, please forgive me. Okay. She did come back and she said, let me clarify. Undiagnosed PTSD from upbringing while also being stuck in that fight, flight, freeze state, which some defendants have been. Okay. I think you answered that pretty well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Just your average man says, my PTSD dumps tons of cortisol with all those side effects, but my active response is strange. I am stressed during normal events and completely calm during chaos.
Yeah,
Wow. Do you
but
see that often?
honestly, I was going to say, I do. I see some people who are on autopilot, and that's what happens to the brain. If I can just kind of give you a quick example of what it looks like to be flooded or to have the hormones flood the brain. Think of yourself at like you're driving in a car and your foot's on the gas, but the car is in park.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you're pressing the gas, but the engine's just turning, and then it starts to smoke, and the oils and all of the fluids in the car begin to burn. That's what it's like when you're constantly in that stress response mode, because the adrenaline, the cortisol, it's constantly flooding you, and it completely wipes out executive functioning, your prefrontal cortex. You can't make decisions. You really find yourself being, that's why we call it flooded. And so I think that's what just an average man is talking about. But at the same time, there are some people who function in chaos very well.
Mhm.
I don't do it very well,
No.
but I do know people who function very well in chaos.
Yeah, and if you're interested, if you want to go down like a really wild rabbit hole about Rice Street, there's a case where a gentleman, he was in jail there for like, I'm not even being funny. I want to say it was like something real random, like
Mhm.
suspended license, and was trapped in Rice Street and actually passed away from, and his body was covered in bed bugs.
Oh no.
So I mean, if you just do like Fulton County Jail bed bugs, it's
Yeah.
gonna come up, and it's pretty bad. So
Mm.
so when you think about like, when you think about you're living your life out on the street, and they come and tell you that, hey, we're about to put you back in Rice Street,
Yeah.
or you gonna say this.
Yeah.
Like today's testimony,
Say
like
it.
the
Just
dude
say
almost said just about anything. He
Yeah.
admitted he didn't even know what the words meant, but he just did not want to go back to Rice Street. He
Yeah.
said, I'll be on probation
Yeah.
for 500 years, no problem. But didn't even know what he was agreeing to.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So those are kind of things. Do you deal with people in the military as well, Jada, in your practice, or is it just
I do.
civilians? You do? Okay.
No, we do. We do. We have many clients. Believe it or not, I was just talking to one today who has PTSD from being in Iraq,
Oh wow.
even years later, but still just always looking over his shoulder, and just the little ticks that come from the fear, the anxiety.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick things as we're rounding bases, because I told Dr. Jada I wasn't going to keep her too long, but y'all have had some great questions. Thank
Yeah.
you. Real quick, I saw two things right here. Dr. Jada really hasn't been keeping up with the trial. Joy asked a question right here, and she's not going to address this because she really truly doesn't. She hasn't been watching it even a little bit, and trust me, because Joy Ball has been around with us for a while, so
Yeah.
she's done 5+ hours on some days.
Yeah.
So she's got a healthy understanding of it. I wouldn't want to put you in that position to do that. Oh, and Jana, I thank you so much. I do understand. Jana was explaining, they were having another conversation when she asked about the RICO. So me over here trying to do my little bad representation of that. It's crazy though, that the whole thing. And when you do RICO, you can use a hearsay.
Mm.
So it can be like, well, I heard Jada. I'm sorry. I heard Jason tell Jada that Trina does XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And that works now. You can do that in RICO. You can't do that. You can't do that anywhere else, but except in RICO. So it is a very weird. I'm like, how are we okay with this? This seems super, super problematic.
Absolutely. The agendas, man. It's the agendas.
Absolutely. But y'all, thank y'all so much, everybody. I want to say thank you, first of all, to Dr. Jada for taking the time to hang out with us on a Friday night. Thank you. It was almost 60 plus of y'all who stopped through in the chat. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you got some good questions answered and so forth. Maybe we'll have you come back, and maybe, you know what, we're gonna watch. We're gonna make you watch a YSL marathon.
You know what? We can do that. We can do that. We can do that.
You do not want that. You do not.
Yeah.
You do not want none of that smoke. I'm telling you. You can be like, Jason,
You don't want that smoke.
you can be like, Jason, what do you got me watching? What is this? It is stressful. I ain't gonna even lie. A lot of us are like, yo, this is craziness. But yeah, see, Filipino girls, she on your side. Don't do that to her.
Don't do that to her.
Don't do it to her.
Thank you, Filipino girl. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
That's true indeed. But no, thank you so much, Dr. Jada. If you ever are doing a project, you're doing a live stream, you're doing a book club or anything of that nature, please send out the bat signal. Send me an email. I will gladly let everybody know. If the moderators could please drop your link in the chat,
Yeah.
one more time before we leave. I should have pinned it to the top, and I wasn't thinking. We will, and she's speaking on our behalf. We will be there. We will definitely come through and support you.
I love
Um, and make sure that whatever you're doing is a great thing. So tell us, are you doing it? Matter of fact, let us know now. Are you doing anything cool that we might want to know about?
Right now, I'm not doing anything cool. I actually put my YouTube on hold for a minute, only because we are in the throes of transitioning my practice, which is, again, I think I told you earlier, everything that I do goes into continuing to build my practice here in the DFW area. But when I get something cool that I do, you're going to be the first to know.
I love it. I love it. You
Mhm.
know what you could do?
But they
You
can follow me on Instagram and
Oh
and
yeah, please.
yeah, absolutely.
Let me
Okay, what were
get
you
that
gonna
right.
say?
No, I was gonna say, or you could do some work to help that YouTuber out that's always under stress and such like that. And you could like, you know what, we're gonna do a special program, especially for this guy, because we really think that this guy needs some help. This dude needs a lot of help.
And you know what? We can do that. We can do that because
I'm all
I
here for
love it.
I am here for it. Now, okay, this is way off the rails. Have you ever done things with school districts or teachers?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, man, as a former teacher, I could tell you,
Yeah.
we live in a state of stress that I don't think anybody appreciates. Is
Yeah.
there give me a good, would you rather me use your IG? What do you want me to put it here real quick?
At Dr. Jada Jackson. At Dr. Jada Jackson. Yep.
Perfect. All right, so there's Dr. Jada's Instagram. She doesn't, so that's where she's going to be active. So definitely check her out.
Yep.
Follow there on the gram.
Yeah,
All that kind of
absolutely.
good jazz, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But no, it has been great. Thank you so much for answering the questions and giving us some of your good insight. Everybody, thank you all for hanging out with me. Some of y'all have been with me since early this morning.
I know.
Right. We need to do something else. I'm gonna go touch some grass tomorrow. But y'all, I thank y'all, every last one of you. Thank you so much. Dr. Jada, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you
And
so much, everyone.
absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much. And we'll see you all again real soon. Grace and peace. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.